A blonde gets a job at a gas station. It is her first day, and her first customer drives to pump number 1 in a red convertible. Super excited, she approaches the customer and says, "Hey, mister, would you like some gas?" The customer says, "Yes, that's why I'm here." She immediately gets to work, filling the customer's tank. While the tank is filling up, she approaches the customer again and says, "Hey, mister, would you like me to clean your windshield?" The customer says, "Sure, why not?" So she cleans his windshield, making sure to get every part of the windshield, and she does an incredible job. Once she completes cleaning his windshield, she approaches him again and says, "Hey, mister, would you like me to check your blinkers to see if they work?" The customer says, "Sure, why not?" So she gets on all fours in front of the car and screams to the customer, "Okay, you can turn them on. I am ready." The customer turns on his left turn signal because her face is right in front of that turn signal. The customer then hears her scream at the top of her lungs, "Yes, no, yes, 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 no." Marge was at the hairdresser's getting her hair done before a trip to Rome with her husband. "Rome!" scoffed the hairdresser. "Why would anyone want to go there? It's crowded and dirty. You're mad." "How are you getting there?" "KLM, we got a great deal." "KLM, terrible airline," the hairdresser said. "Old planes, ugly flight attendants, always late." "And where are you staying?" "A little place by the Tiber called the Vesuvius Palace." "Oh, I know it," said the hairdresser. "People think it's exclusive, but it's a dump." "Well, we're hoping to see the Vatican, maybe even the Pope." "That's rich," laughed the hairdresser. "You and a million others. He'll look like an ant. You'll need luck on that trip." A month later, Maggie's back for a trim. "So, how was Rome?" "Wonderful," Marge said. "We flew on a brand new KLM plane, got bumped to first class, and had amazing food and wine, and a handsome 28-year-old steward waited on me hand and foot. The hotel had just had a £5 million remodel. They were overbooked and gave us the owner's suite for free." Yeah, muttered the hairdresser. "But you didn't see the Pope." "Actually," said Marge, "a Swiss guard tapped me on the shoulder and asked if I'd like to meet him privately. 5 minutes later, the Pope walked in, shook my hand, and spoke to me." "Oh, really?" sneered the hairdresser. "What did he say?" Marge smiled and replied, "Who the bloody is your hair? It looks like a pile of shit." 2 hunters were trekking through the woods when they stumbled upon a huge, gaping hole in the ground. "Wow," said the first hunter. "That hole is endless. I can't even see the bottom." The second hunter grinned. "Let's throw something in and see how long it takes to hit." Nearby, they spotted an old, rusty car engine and heaved it into the hole. They waited. When suddenly, a goat came bounding out of the trees and plunged straight into the hole. As they stared in disbelief, an old farmer appeared. "Excuse me, boys. Have you seen my goat?" One hunter pointed to the hole. "Funny you ask. A goat just jumped right in there." The farmer scratched his head. "Impossible. I had him tied to that old car engine over there." 4 brothers left home for college to become a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist, and an entertainer. They all prospered, and each one was able to give their elderly mother a special gift. Some years later, chatting after a Seder dinner, they discussed the gifts that they gave their dear mother. The first said, "I had a big house built for Mama." The second said, "I had a $100,000 theater built in the house." The third said, "I had my Mercedes dealer deliver her a Maybach S680 with a chauffeur." The fourth said, "Listen to this. You know how Mama loves reading the Torah, and you know she can't see very well. I sent her a parrot that can recite the entire Torah. It took 12 rabbis 20 years to teach him. I had to pledge to contribute $100,000 a year for 20 years, but it was worth it. Mama just has to name the chapter and verse, and the parrot will recite it. Soon thereafter, Mom sent out her thank you notes. She wrote, "Milton, the house you built is so huge. I live in only one room, but I have to clean the whole house. Thanks so much. Marvin, I am too old to travel. I stay home, and I have my groceries delivered, so I never use the Mercedes, and the driver is a Nazi. A million thanks. Menachem, you give me a theater with Dolby sound. It could hold 50 people, but all my friends are dead. I've lost my hearing, and I'm nearly blind. Thanks anyway." Dearest Melvin, you were the only son to have the good sense to give a little thought to your gift. The chicken was delicious. A young man and a young woman were soon to be married, but they both had a problem they had never told anyone else about. The man approached his father one day before the wedding and told him about his problem. His feet really stunk. Even if he washed them constantly, he was worried that this would scare off his new bride, so he needed a solution fast. His father pondered the situation and finally told his son to wear socks constantly, even to bed, and always wash his feet whenever he got a chance. The son thought about this and went along happy. The same day, the young lady approached her mother and told her about her problem. Her morning breath was horrid. Her mother reassured her and told her everyone had bad morning breath. The young woman told her mother that this was not normal morning breath, but easily the worst in the world. The mother thinks about this and comes up with this bright idea. She tells her daughter to get up earlier than everyone else and don't say a thing. Go make breakfast and then brush her teeth while the others are eating. The young woman thinks and then runs off to get ready for the wedding. Happy? No, the couple is married and they are happy, him with his perpetual socks and her with her morning silences. One morning about 5:30 a.m., the young man wakes up to find one sock missing. He starts rustling around in the bed looking for it, which of course wakes up his wife, who without thinking asks what's wrong. With a look of shock on his face, the young man says, "Oh my God, you've swallowed my sock!" Two avid hunters take a hunter's safety class in which they learn that the universal signal for an emergency is 3 SSH oats in the air. Sure enough, on their next hunting trip, the two men get lost. One says to the other, "What shall we do?" The other says, "I know fire 3 SH oats in the air and someone may come to find us." He fires off 3 SH oats, and they wait 2 hours. No sign of help. What shall we do? Fire off 3 more SH oats. So he does. 3 hours later, there is no response, and it is getting dark. The one says, "Shall we try again?" The other says, "I guess not. I only have 2 arrows left." A mother invited some people to dinner. She turned to her 6-year-old daughter at the table and asked, "Would you like to say the blessing?" "I wouldn't know what to say," the girl replied. "Just say what you hear Mommy say," the woman answered. The daughter bowed her head and said, "Lord, why on earth did I invite all these people to dinner?" On the way home from a hunter stops by the grocery store. "Give me a couple of steaks," he says. "We're out of steaks, but we have hot dogs and chicken," says the butcher. "Hot dogs and chicken?" yells the hunter. "How can I tell my wife I bagged a couple of hot dogs and chickens?" A blonde walks into the police department looking for a job. The officer wants to ask him a few questions. Officer: "What's 2 plus 2? Blonde: 4. Officer: "What's the square root of 100? Blonde: 10. Officer: "Good. Now, who killed Abraham Lincoln?" Blonde: I don't know. Officer: "Well, you can go home and think about it. Come back tomorrow." The blonde comes home and calls one of her friends, who asks her if she got the job. The blonde says enthusiastically, "Not only did I get the job, but I'm already working on a murder case." There was a farmer who grew watermelons. He was doing pretty well, but he was disturbed by some local kids who would sneak into his watermelon patch at night and eat his watermelons. After some careful thought, he came up with a clever idea that he thought would scare the kids away for sure. He made up a sign and posted it in the field. The next day, the kids show up and they saw the sign, which read, "Warning! One of the watermelons in this field has been injected with cyanide." The kids run off, make up their own sign, and post it next to the farmer's sign. When the farmer returned, he surveyed the field. He noticed that no watermelons were missing, but the sign next to his read, "Now there are two." A couple of old ladies were sitting on a patio and speaking to each other about their grandchildren. "I send gifts, greeting cards, and checks to my grandchildren," complains one, "and still they barely visit me." The second old lady said, "Oh, I also send checks to my grandchildren, and they visit me all the time." "You are so fortunate to have more grateful grandchildren than my own," said the first one sadly. The second old lady smiled. "No, my grandchildren are about as grateful as yours." "So what do you do differently? Are your checks bigger than mine?" asked the first one, surprised. "No," chuckled the other old lady. "I just don't sign mine." A blonde walks into the Best Buy. She asks a clerk if she can buy the TV in the corner. The clerk looks at her and says he doesn't serve blondes, so she returns home and dyes her hair black. The next day, she returns to the store and asks the same thing, and again the clerk says he doesn't serve blondes. Frustrated, the blonde goes home and dyes her hair again to a shade of red. Sure that a clerk would sell her the TV this time, she returns and asks a different clerk. To her astonishment, this clerk also says that she doesn't serve blondes. The blonde asks the clerk, "How do you know I am a blonde?" The clerk looks at her disgustedly and says, "That's not a TV, it's a microwave." Two Irishmen flew to Canada on a hunting trip. They chartered a small plane to take them into the Rockies for a week of hunting moose. They managed to bag 6. As they were loading the plane to return, the pilot said the plane could take only 4 moose. The two lads objected strongly. "Last year we shot 6. The pilot let us take them all, and he had the same plane as yours." Reluctantly, the pilot gave in and all 6 were loaded. The plane took off. However, while attempting to cross some mountains even on full power, the little plane couldn't handle the load and went down. Somehow, surrounded by the moose bodies, only Patty and Mick survived the crash. After climbing out of the wreckage, Patty asked Mick, "Any idea where we are?" Mick replied, "I think we're pretty close to where we crashed last year." A farmer purchases an old, run-down, abandoned farm with plans to turn it into a thriving enterprise. The fields are overgrown with weeds, the farmhouse is falling apart, and the fences are collapsing all around. During his first day of work, the town preacher stops by to bless the man's work, saying, "May you and God work together to make this the farm of your dreams." A few months later, the preacher stops by again to call on the farmer. Lo and behold, it's like a completely different place. The farmhouse is completely rebuilt and in excellent condition. There are plenty of cattle and other livestock happily munching on feed in well-fenced pens, and the fields are filled with crops planted in neat rows. "Amazing," the preacher says. "Look what God and you have accomplished together." "Yes, Reverend," says the farmer. "But remember what the farm was like when God was working it alone." Mr. Johnson boarded his flight to New York City and approached the aisle seat he had booked. To his surprise, a blonde woman was already sitting there. "Excuse me," Mr. Johnson said, trying to stay calm. "That's my seat. I specifically booked it." The woman looked up and said confidently, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City." Frustrated, Mr. Johnson checked her ticket. It clearly showed she was assigned to the middle seat. "Your ticket says you're supposed to sit in the middle," he said, pointing to her ticket. "I booked this aisle seat because I'm 6'5" and I need the extra space. You're what, 5'1"? You'll be fine in the middle seat." The blonde, unfazed, repeated, I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City. The woman in the window seat chimed in. You should listen to him. My ex was tall, only 6'1", and he always needed the aisle seat to avoid feeling cramped. Still, the blonde replied, I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City. At his wit's end, Mr. Johnson called over a flight attendant. He explained the situation, and the attendant nodded before leaning down to whisper something in the blonde's ear. Suddenly, the blonde's expression changed. Without a word, she moved to the middle seat. Relieved, Mr. Johnson sat down in the aisle seat. After the plane landed in New York, his curiosity got the better of him. He approached the flight attendant and asked, What did you say to her? The attendant smiled. I told her the aisle seat wasn't going to New York City. A blonde heard that milk baths would make her beautiful. She left a note for her milkman to leave 25 gallons of milk. When the milkman read the note, he felt there must be a mistake. He thought she probably meant 2.5 gallons. So he knocked on the door to clarify the point. The blonde came to the door, and the milkman said, I found your note asking me to leave 25 gallons of milk. Did you mean 2.5 gallons? The blonde said, I want 25 gallons. I'm going to fill my bathtub up with milk and take a milk bath so I can look young and beautiful again. The milkman asked, Do you want it pasteurized? The blonde said, No, just up to my boobs. I can splash it on my eyes. Two Saskatchewan farmers were looking at a Sears catalog and admiring the models. One says to the other, Have you seen the beautiful girls in this catalog? The second one replies, Yes, they are very beautiful, and look at the price. The first one says with wide eyes, Wow, they aren't very expensive. At this price, I'm buying one. The second farmer smiles and pats him on the back. Good idea. Order one. And if she's as beautiful as she is in the catalog, I will get one too. 3 weeks later, the youngest farmer asks his friend, Did you ever receive the girl you ordered from the Sears catalog? The second farmer replies, No, but it shouldn't be long now. I got her clothes yesterday. 3 old ladies were sitting at the dinner table discussing their problems with getting old. The first one said, Sometimes I catch myself with a jar of mayonnaise in my hand while standing in front of the refrigerator, and I can't remember whether I need to put it away or start making a sandwich. The second lady says, Yes, sometimes I find myself on the landing of the stairs and can't remember whether I was on my way up or on my way down. The third one says, Well, ladies, I'm glad I don't have any of those problems, knock on wood. As she hit her knuckles on the table, she looked up and said, That must be the door. I'll get it. An artist asked the gallery owner if there had been any interest in his paintings on display at that time. I have good news and bad news, the owner replied. The good news is that a gentleman inquired about your work and wondered if it would appreciate in value after your death. When I told him it would, he bought all 15 of your paintings. That's wonderful, the artist exclaimed. What's the bad news? The guy was your doctor. With a very seductive voice, the woman asked her husband, Have you ever seen $20 all crumpled up? The woman asked her husband. No, replied her husband. She gave him a lingering, sensuous smile and slowly unbuttoned the top 4 buttons of her blouse. She slowly reached down into the cleavage created by a soft, silky push-up bra and pulled out a crumpled $20 note. He took the crumpled $20 note from her and smiled approvingly. Have you ever seen $50 all crumpled up? She then asked her husband. No, I haven't, he told her, with a slightly anxious tone in his voice. She gave him another sexy little smile, pulled up her skirt, and seductively retrieved a crumpled $50 note. He took the crumpled $50 note and started breathing a little quicker with anticipation. Now, she said, have you ever seen $50,000 all crumpled up? No way, he exclaimed, while becoming even more breathless. Well, go look in the garage, she replied. A man buys a paint factory in a small town. He visits the local volunteer fire department to see for himself if they'd be able to handle a fire at his plant. What he finds convinces him they could not. The whole fire department consists of one old pumper truck and a bunch of volunteers he finds less than reliable. He tells them, "Boys, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm not confident you could handle a fire at my plant. I'm going to contract with the nearby big city fire department." A few months later, the unthinkable happens and the plant catches fire. The owner calls the big city fire department, and when they show up, the fire chief decides that it's just too dangerous to approach the plant. He decides to set up a roadblock to prevent anyone from going near it, and they begin to wait it out. Just then, the local boys come barreling down the road, fire bell clanging and siren blaring. The driver is waving his arms to get the big city firemen to move out of the way and crashes right through the barricades. They smash through an overhead door into the plant, set up a few hoses, and start fighting the fire. The guys without hoses grab shovels and start flinging dirt onto the fire. The big city fire chief sees this and shouts, "Come on, boys, let's get in there and help them out." After a few hours, their efforts pay off, and they manage to save a large portion of the plant. The owner is happy as he can be and tells the local fire chief, "That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen." "Thank you. I'm going to write you a check and donate $10,000 to your fire department. Do you have any idea how you're going to spend it?" The local chief thinks for a moment and says, "Well, I don't know what we're going to do with the rest. But first thing tomorrow morning, that fire engine is getting new brakes." A professor, a CEO, and a janitor are in a forest when they discover a magic fairy. The fairy says, "I will give you what you most desire if you do someone else's job for a day." The professor says, "I'll be an elementary school teacher. What can be so hard about teaching a bunch of 6-year-olds how to read?" So he is teleported into a classroom. After a few minutes, all the kids' screaming gets to his nerves, so he throws all his supplies and gives up. The CEO says, "I'll be a waiter. All you do is carry food back and forth. This'll be a breeze." So he is teleported to a restaurant. After about an hour, all the annoying customers drive him insane, so he smashes his plates on the ground and gives up. The janitor says, "I'll be an artist." So he is transported to an art facility. He glues all the classroom supplies and shattered plates to a canvas, then sells it for $1 billion. The fairy asks the janitor how he was so clever. The janitor says, "I got a master's degree in art."